There is something about the whole notion of art being where people are being part of their daily life that fascinates me. I'm Hafþór Ingvason. I'm director of the West End Gallery and responsible for the exhibition program in the gallery and the sculptures on campus. There was this major revolution in art in the 1960s and 70s. Artists had this urge to get out of the galleries and museums and do work in public spaces. And art changed from figurative or sculptures in the round, where you would go around and look at it, it would sit on a pedestal and same meaning wherever it was. But artists started to think about the space that the art was in. This is something that happened in the 1960s and 70s, to create what's called site-specific art. Art that responds to the place where it will be and will be experienced. Artists have developed the notion of public art to kind of address the public, you know, not just placing sculptures in public space, but addressing the public. There's something public about the art. Artworks become very architectural, in that the part of the experience is to go inside of it and experience yourself in relation to the artwork, the scale of the piece, rather than just look at it from outside. There are a lot of artists who that's why artists are making site-specific art. They really want the art to speak to the place and to the community.
At Abilitruck, we say that accessibility isn't one size fits all. So therefore, what's accessible to one person isn't necessarily accessible to another. A lot of public spaces may not be accessible to everyone, and that can be quite frustrating, especially if you want to go out and experience whatever that might be, whether that's recreational or going to a coffee shop or wanting to see a piece of art. There's a lot of areas that people just don't necessarily understand or think about, and that may have to do with because they don't experience it themselves. So they don't know that there is that barrier, they just don't think about it, and so therefore they don't accommodate for that barrier. And I think if a service or a piece of public is available to one person, it should be available to every person, including people with disabilities.
Bellingham has a Percent for Art program. Whenever there's a state-funded building, new building or renovation of a building that's state-funded, there's a law in the state of Washington that half of 1% goes towards art for that building. This is not a special tax that is put to fund the art, it's just part of a construction project. The state of Washington program used to be 1% and was cut down to 0.5%. It limits the fund significantly.
I really think it's important for quote-unquote able-bodied population to understand that anyone can become a part of the disability community at any time. So investing in accessibility is really investing in your own future. People who don't have disabilities are making the plans, are thinking that they know what they're doing, and then when we're asked how accessible is it, we typically say it's not as great as you think it is, and that's because people who live the life of having different disabilities aren't consulted, aren't asked, and so it's hard to make things accessible if you really don't understand what the meaning behind that accessibility really is.
People object to public art often based on misunderstanding. They think that it is something that requires special funding, and they don't want the money to go to that. They don't feel art should be a part of what the government does. They feel the money should go into roadways at best.
To make a piece of art public to everyone, This means that it's accessible to everyone, so everyone can get there. Making sure that pathways are accessible, not very steep, sloping. Concrete is better than grass, sand, rock. Accessible parking near piece of art is also very important, because if someone has to travel a long distance to a piece of art that may not be public to them, people don't necessarily understand that rocks or uneven ground can be difficult for people who use mobility aids or who have balance issues, and this can even go for people who are blind. People who are low vision or blind can also have balance issues. Anything that has a flight of stairs is a barrier. A QR code on the sign would also be extremely helpful, because that could link someone who is legally blind or maybe just wants more information to quickly get them to a website that describes what they're looking at, because I know that there's history and feelings and ideas put into a piece of art. So I think that would be beneficial to anyone, not just someone with a disability.
I really and strongly believe that art can be experienced and understood on so many different levels. There's something about art that people can respond to on whatever level.
I want to say that if it's meant to be public art, it really should be public to everybody.